it's that time of year to launch the Community Radio Awards, and we've got some changes this year that we want to talk about and promote, including a little bit, we've tweaked our brand, and I want to say a massive thank you to Christopher, who's part of my team, or part of the management actually, sort of the trustees, directors of the Community Radio Awards. He randomly designed we did a bit of a rebrand, which I think looks quite cool, quite nice as well. And whilst I'm here, I also do want to say thank you to AIR, who are our sponsors and have sponsored us through Play Out One, and obviously Play Out One's now part of AIR and has sponsored us for the last few years, and they're continuing that sponsor for hopefully the next couple of years as well. And for those that don't know me, with this hat on, this costume change, I'm the founder and the chair of the Community Radio Awards. And the point of the awards, and why we launched them back in 2016, was to celebrate the sector and all those involved, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of volunteers and those people involved in community radio, in whatever form it takes, you know, whether it's music, whether it's journalism and content, or management and volunteering as well. So celebrate the sector and all those involved to promote community radio and develop and share best practice. There's a lot of great stuff going on in community radio that we can all steal other people's ideas, and we want to, and we should be helping each other to do that. We should be working in partnership more as an industry and as a sector, and it's really only the one night of the year where we're in slightly competition for each other, and that's the awards. So to celebrate the awards, we have the annual Community Radio Awards and the event, and celebrate those who are delivering great community radio, like I said, in there, up and down the country, whether it is a community of location station or a community of interest station. We held the annual awards ceremony, which for the past few years has obviously been in partnership with the UK Community Radio Network and has followed their national conference. And we've been all over the country with it as well, but we do want to take it to other parts of the country, and there's a call out at the end for that as well. To promote the sector, we really want to encourage people to use a nomination or a bronze or a silver or a gold to help them raise their profile in their local area. Local news, local dignitaries. I know in the past, I think Scottish MPs or SMPs or whatever they are have mentioned it in the Scottish Parliament about their stations doing well. So we really want to encourage to use the awards as a platform for stations and people involved in community radio to promote themselves as well. What I would say is, please, if you do get press coverage, do take a scan or a photo and send it to us. When I was up, this is a new presentation. I've completely retired the old one that I've been reusing for years, and I wanted to find some updated photos. And I was like, actually, nobody sent me some press cuttings for a while. So if you do ever get press cuttings for the awards, do send us copies, because we want to know, we want to see that this impact, because I see this as an impact and a benefit of the awards. It's an opportunity to shout about what you're doing within your community. And like I said, even if you get nominated, or a bronze, or a silver, or a gold, or even shortlisted, you're in that 4th or 5th place, do use it as an opportunity to promote who you are. But also, we wanted it to promote across the wider industry. 5-10 years ago, community radio didn't have much of a visible profile across the rest of the radio industry. And I'm really hoping, a lot of the feedback I've had from judges and from other people in the industry is that the Community Radio Awards has really helped raise the profile of what community radio does. Let's be honest, we all know people in the BBC and commercial radio where their viewpoint of community radio is that, it's a little bit Tim Potty or a little bit whatever. But certainly from my judges, the amount of judges who I've had from commercial, the BBC, who have almost contacted me with an apology. They're halfway through the judging process and they've emailed me with an apology going, this wasn't what I was expecting. Most of these people could be on the local BBC, could be on national BBC, could be on commercial radio. I feel I owe community radio an apology for that misconception. So part of it is really promoting what we do as a sector and making sure, personally I think that community radio, we're now, I would say, almost the largest third tier. You know, there are more community radio stations than there are commercial stations and BBC put together. Now that obviously all the brands have all merged and this kind of stuff, you know, we are a significant part. You know, I'd even hasten to guess and say there are more people involved in community radio than there are the rest of the industry put together. And we should be seen by the rest of the industry of what we are and who we do, and the power of what we do. And then also to develop and share best practice. So we want to attend more conferences and events and help promote the winners. We want the gold winners to be used more to showcase what they're doing. There's a reason they've got gold. We've been a bit lax at putting them on our website, and we need to do better at that and put all our golds. We're actually redeveloping our website at the moment and hope to put all our old historic golds up there so people can see what other people are doing. Share their ideas, you know, share and steal their ideas, share their best practice. We also ask our judges to write constructive feedback as well to everyone. It's not always the most constructive in the sense that sometimes judges go, oh, that's a fantastic piece of work, or fantastic piece of radio, and then I get people coming back to me going, well, if it was that good, why didn't I win gold? And I go, well, because maybe there were other people who were equally as fantastic. And I would say from the judges' feedback is, honestly, year on year, and I know I say this at the beginning of every awards, but it's honestly true, my judges who judge for me regularly come back to me and say, year on year, the quality is improving year on year, and it's making their job harder. Absolutely. I would say last year's Community Radio Awards, Station of the Year, there was honestly a cigarette paper between the top 4, top 5. There was fractions in the scoring between it. So all those people that were in the top 5 for Station of the Year, you all deserve to be championed as fantastic stations. So who are the awards for? So to account for the changing landscape of community radio and broadcasting, you know, for SSDAB coming in and how radio is changing, we're changing the eligibility from this year. So in the past, it was just Ofcom licensed community radio stations. This year, it's from this year onwards, we may tweak it in the future. It's to account for all these changes. We want to serve Ofcom licensed, and it's still Ofcom licensed, that are delivering local community radio and social gain. So with the criteria has changed to Ofcom licensed and broadcasting radio station that's broadcasting as an Ofcom licensed station, I hasten to add. If you've got a CDSP but you're not broadcasting on it, you don't quite count at the moment. Operated by a not-for-profit or charitable entity. So that is your CICs, your CIOs, your charities, your universities, colleges, schools, anything like that. Any form of not-for-profit, but with a remit to serve a community of location or a locally based community of interest. Now, for most stations, that will mean a traditional licensed, Ofcom licensed CR or a CDSP. It's quite easy. And that's why in the past we've struggled with that eligibility. But if, for example, there are still some community stations running as a DSP in a trial SSDAB area, so under the old rules they're not eligible, but also in the last couple of years Ofcom have released new products, you know, long-term RSLs, low-powered long-term RSLs to serve particular communities. So in those instances, stations can engage with us and contact us and have that conversation about do they meet our eligibility thresholds and do that. And we're happy to have that conversation. So we've broadened up the amount of stations that can enter. Entering the awards. So we accept entries from individuals. So you don't have to do it through your station, and there are some stations that just say, off you go, do it yourself. Equally, we're happy to receive entries from stations. There are some stations that like to collate. We don't want stations to be barriers to entry. We don't want stations to say, we will only enter one of each category. So we will cherry pick. We want the awards to be broad. We want our judges to make the decisions, not individual stations. So I'm telling you that. I'm not saying that's a false rule, but it's what we like to encourage stations to do. You know, support stations. We have a bit of awkwardness at NLive Radio because of me that I can't support. Honestly, I tell you now, I have nothing to do with our entries. I tell them that it's happening, and I go, that's it. I can't have anything to do with it. And we will never, any station that I'm involved with will never enter like the Station of the Year or anything like that, because obviously that just would be seen as a bit wrong. So, but I would encourage stations to support themselves. I would encourage stations to support each other in putting the entries together. It's £5 per entry, and we've not changed that since we launched. I hope we don't have to change it in the future. Obviously, costs are going up, platform costs are going up. I'm hoping we can generate more sponsorship for the awards to help cover those costs. We do have an entry, and that's more just as a little bit of a gatekeeper, to be fair, because when we've done free entries in the past, we've had all sorts of just random stuff enter that's just not eligible people that have just submitted a poem, and it's just a lot of churn. And we get that with the Station of the Year, because Station of the Year is a free entry. And we always do Station of the Year free, and I would encourage stations to consider looking at Station of the Year. It's a big amount of work, I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of work, but I always have encouraged stations to consider doing an annual review of who they are, and you use the Station of the Year entry. You know, if you've put together however many pages it is, never done one myself, 10 pages, 8, or however many pages it is, use that as your annual report that you then send to your big sponsors, that you send to your stakeholders, you send your MP, use your Station of the Year, you know, take the audio you've put together, put some visuals to it, and turn that into your big promo of who you are, you know. Use the Station of the Year as a catalyst to bring your station together. The other thing I would also suggest, from my experience of student radio, is encourage your presenters to do their own entries and then get them to send them to you with enough time that you can then cherry pick the best of what they think is their best to help you put your Station of the Year entry together, if that makes sense. Here is this year's dates. Entries are opening on Friday, that should be the Friday, of the 19th of May, and is open for 6 weeks. Hard 6 weeks, and will close on the 30th of June. We always do it in May, June time. This year's categories, that's this year's categories. There are some changes which I'm about to go through, and because we've got rid of a couple. So Community Impact Project, Station of the Year, Male Presenter, Female Presenter, Community Show, Live Event or Outside Broadcast, Entertainment Show, News, Journalism and Factual Storytelling, Specialist Content Show, Specialist Music, Arts and Creative, Volunteer, Young Person, Sage Person, Newcomer, and this year's special entry, Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth, Her Life, Her Reign and Her Passing. Some of the big changes: we are changing Community Development Project and turning it into Community Impact Project, and we're going to change the wording on it to reflect that it's not about those bespoke projects. It's about just the wider impact that you do as community radio stations on air and off. We're going to tweak Community Show of the Year to really make clear it's about bespoke programming for targeted communities within the station's wider schedule and different to the main programming the station will do. This is the likes of basically producing programming for sort of the protected characteristics under equality. So this is, you know, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, youth, disability, those kind of stuff. So those shows that really go above and beyond to provide a voice and a platform for those communities. Speech and journalism is becoming news, journalism and factual storytelling. It's about journalistic content, which could be news teams producing news content. It could be news presentations and magazine shows and news shows. It could be, you know, dedicated news, politics, current affairs shows and interview content of a journalistic nature. We are adding a specialist content show. This is for shows that cover particular special interests that might not fit anywhere else. So it may not quite fit in a community show, it may not fit in a journalistic show. These are things like, you know, lifestyle shows, issue shows, you know, so mental health and wellbeing shows, environmental shows, business shows. Finance, you know, all those kind of stuff that maybe doesn't quite fit. And we're going to tweak some of the wording to try and really make sure that there's more identity about where you think that show should fit. And as I said, this year's special category, Her Majesty's Queen Elizabeth II, Her Life, Her Reign and Her Passing. So the Jubilee was within the last period of when we take the eligibility material, because the eligibility material is normally from the June of the previous year, so June last year, all the way through till the end of the submission period this year. So there's normally like a month, that June is normally a bit of an overlap. And you forget the Jubilee was way back then. So, you know, we've had her Jubilee, and then we've had her passing, so covering the announcement of her passing, the funeral, and how stations, you know, put a collection of either all of that material together or maybe highlight one or the other of those of what you did as a station. We're not covering the coronation, I hasten to add. I know it fits within that period, but it's towards the end of that period. We may maybe pick something up on that next year. We are getting rid of Innovation Award, which I know will be a shame to some people because there's some people that have won the Innovation Award. We've really struggled with the number of entries on that. Some people really were struggling with, what is innovation in community radio? We're going to rest it for now and see what happens. We're also going to encourage the Community Radio Network to maybe pick up more of that innovation with their work in terms of showcasing what people are doing within the community radio sector. And we're happy to work with them. I say we, obviously I'm wearing multiple hats at that point. And also some judges were finding it really hard to differentiate between sort of a technical innovation and a business innovation or a community impact innovation. And we've never had loads of entries on that. And also we had some stations that were rebadging the same project every couple of years and calling it innovation. So we've got rid of Innovation Award. We may bring it back, who knows? And we're getting rid of Digital and RSL Station of the Year. Again, we never had a load of entries for this category, despite the fact it was aimed at sort of internet community stations. Because we've now changed the eligibility criteria, some stations where in the past they would have entered through that, now can enter the main awards. So we're getting rid of Digital and RSL Station here. And then removing podcasts. We've had up and down levels of entries with the podcasting category. There are lots of and actually we launched the podcasting category before the podcasting awards launched, around the same time that the British Podcast Awards or whatever they're called. There are now lots of opportunities for podcasters to go and get recognition for the work they're doing. I also don't know how many community radio stations are doing dedicated podcasting content, which is different to just listen again kind of content. So we're resting that. We're going to pull that out for now and see. And also we're Community Radio Awards. So we're going to look at what multimedia, multi-platform looks like longer term, but we're going to concentrate on that. In terms of what makes an entry, every category will have text. And we're in the process of renewing the website, and we're going to put more detailed text. We've been very inspired by the ARIAs and how they do quite a lot of text and quite a lot what they call their rubric of what the judges are looking for. So we're going to do a bit of work on that over the next few weeks, and we're going to try and add more content into the entries, into the category criteria, so you've got more idea of maybe what the judges are looking for and what we mean. We have what the details of the entry submission should look like. For most categories, it's a word count. So it's just X number of words, and then most of them are 5 minutes. And I'll come to some hints and tips about what that might look like. And then we are one of the only awards that really tells you what our judges can judge on, and that's these 5 judging criteria. Every category has 5. We're reviewing those as well over the next few weeks, just to tweak and maybe strengthen some of the language on some. And when it comes to judging, our judges can only judge on those 5 entry criteria, or judging criteria. In terms of some hints and tips, read that judging criteria. Read those 5 points and try and work out how, within your written and your audio entry, you can best demonstrate how you're meeting those 5 points. When it comes to audio, this sounds like a bit of a misnomer though, but use your best bits. And use your best bits first. Capture the attention of the judge from the very beginning. Because if your best bits are hidden at the end, they may not quite get to that. They may have zoned out. That's part of the reason why we keep it 5 minutes, is you can do a lot with 5 minutes. We get a lot of feedback saying 5 minutes isn't a lot, but I'd argue that for most radio, if you can't communicate a flavour of what you were doing in 5 minutes, you might struggle doing that in 20 minutes. Also, if they were longer entries, our judging would be much more of a challenge. I've judged some other awards in the industry because I don't judge the community radios. I'm not involved in the physical judging at all. And so I judge other awards. And I'll tell you what, there's some other awards where you have 20-minute entries and you've got like 20 entries of 20 minutes. And it's a lot of work and you get a lot of zone out and a lot of blur in that period. So use your best bits first. Use a little or no production. Some of the feedback I've seen where is like your entry's just full of jingles and sweepers and stuff like that. Use a little bit if you need to, if it helps add flavour, or if you've got branded stuff for your show. But try not to use a lot of that. And obviously, be really hesitant about the first. I have listened to one entry because there was some feedback on it where like the first minute was just like a compilation of jingles and stuff like that. Try and use it sparingly just to help punctuate. And you can just use silence between, if you're doing clips, If you're doing a selection of clips, you can just fade down to silence and pick it back up. You could potentially maybe use a short sting or a jingle between and that kind of stuff. What I forgot to say, actually, when it came to the judging criteria, we're adding this year to all of our entries a playlist box, so that you can actually write and communicate. Again, it's something we've seen in the arias that we're stealing. We're stealing from other ideas. As much as we encourage stations to do from self, we steal from other awards. Is you do a time-coded playlist of what judges are listening to, because it can help add some context without you having to do so in your word entry. So don't abuse that. Don't make it a second written entry, but use that as an opportunity to really highlight what the judges are listening to. With your entries, not too much music. Again, I've seen some entries where most of the content is just music. Use a little bit of music. Even on specialist music shows, it's about the passion of you as the presenter and what you're doing and the passion for the music. So use short music sparingly. And for most of the entries, it's about you and your voice. If you're doing best male or best entertainment for your entertainment show, and there's lots of different voices going on, think about how is the judge going to know which one of those voices is you. I mean, if nothing else, make sure you're the first voice that's heard in an entry. Obviously, that changes when it's outside broadcast, an OB, and it's a team entry or station of the year. But really try and make sure that it's about you or the voices that are relevant to the entry. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I'd give you is get someone else to read and listen to the entry to give feedback. This is where I say stations working collaboratively, working within the sales collaboratively can work really, really well. And I also do know that, say, for Station of the Year, I've known people contact other station managers and say, hey, can you have a read or a listen through and see what you think? Get somebody else to check it through, make sure it meets those criteria, make sure it sounds good. As for the judging process, we're quite passionate and proud of our judging process. We have around 80 judges each year. We're slowly trying to grow that number. I think we've had about 300-400 judges involved throughout the years. I'd like more, always want more judges, because more judges mean that I've got more judges judging, I can have more pairs of ears on content, and certain judges are not having to do as much. There are some judges that judge nearly half the awards, because they say, I've done all that judging, can I have some more? And that kind of stuff, but I'd like more and more judges. We're passionate about the fact that our judges come from across the industry. So people from commercial radio, people from the BBC, and people from community radio. And we make sure, through asking the judges, and we also do some little extra checking as well, that whilst we invite judges from community radio, they don't have any involvement with any entry that they've had any connection to. So they tell us, but also we do double checking on that as well, that we make sure that they're judging entries that are from different stations and this kind of stuff. And our judges are really good, actually. Occasionally, when the old one falls through, they will hear me going, "Oh, I've just realised I know that person. I won't judge it," or I know them, but they're not related to my station. I've known them for years, but I'll be completely objective about who they are and this kind of stuff. And we also do keep a check on the scoring, just to make sure that there's no there's no judges sort of, manipulating anything as well. But also academics who are involved in research and teaching radio. You tend to find there's a lot of academics, like Adrian Warner from the University of Northampton, who used to work or still does work in broadcasting. So there's nearly all university academics in journalism and radio have come through the industry. So we keep them involved because also, if anything else, they understand the process of judging, because it's similar to marking, and they understand the process of giving constructive feedback, because that's what university lecturers do all the time. So we like to have a good mix of academics as well, but also it encourages academics to realise the power of community radio and inspire some of them maybe to look at the research in community radio and talking more about community radio, building the benefits. I mean, you were talking about building relationships with your local university. Send them my details, encourage them to come and judge the Community Radio Awards, because they can see the power of community radio. And as I said, we always do welcome more people to judge as well. Our judging process is independent. The judges don't know who each other are. We tell our judges not to publicly announce what category they're judging. We encourage them to say that they're judging and to promote that they're judging, but not to say what categories they're judging. The judges don't know who each other are. It's a closed category. It's all done on scores. So each of those 5 judging criteria, they're scored out of 10. So an entry, in theory, can have from 0 to 50. And the system itself then generates averaging scoring, and it's that scoring that then shortlists and then takes people through to gold, silver, bronze, and the shortlist as well. We don't bring the judges together. We don't have the judges deliberating amongst themselves, because personally I think that means judges can advocate for each other. They can add additional information. We're proud of that. We're proud about the fact that it's a blind process. We're looking at adding extra measures based on feedback. Extra measures, we're looking at trying to bring extra people in just to double check some of those numbers to make sure there's more oversight on those numbers, because it's a completely locked system. In theory, there's no ability to manipulate that. You know, the numbers are what the numbers are. It also means that we can operate outside. Whilst me personally, I'm connected. You know, like I said, I wear different hats. The system is the system, and even I, you know, in theory, can't do anything. So it means, you know, even with my UK Community Radio hat on, or my NLive Radio hat, or my other project hats on, you know, it's still independent and robust. And we are a separate organisation. The Community Radio Awards is a separate company, deliberately so that we're not overly connected with any organisation. We work in partnership. In the past with the Community Media Association. We work now with the UK Community Radio Network. We've worked in partnership with the Radio Academy. You know, all these kind of stuff. So we're happy to work in partnership, but we're robustly independent as well. And just to say, yeah, all the judges, they can only judge on those 5 published criteria. So you know what they're judging your entries on. But don't just take my word for that. We have Will Jackson, who was the former director of Audio UK. He's now the communications of World DAB, or communication manager for World DAB. He still judges for us. Each entry is marked against the criteria, and there are several judges across each category, so no single judge can determine the outcome. He takes full responsibility for his own marking. There's no discussion or external influence. And while I have no association with the community station, we judges know that we would need to declare it as well. So that's Will Jackson. And then Daniel Bruce, who hasn't judged for a couple of years. He was involved, I think it's in Internews. He's now the Chief Executive of Transparency International, if you need any more of an endorsement on that sense. He found the Community Radio Awards judging process one of the most objective and rigorous in the sector. Awards are judged against a well-defined set of criteria with a common maximum score. Judges must rely on their own expertise and assessments as they work independently of others. This makes for a very clean and fair approach. So hopefully that will really show that our judging is independent and it's fair, but we do want to get more judges involved, because the more judges we get, the more scores and stuff we can get. So what's next? Get ready for the awards. We have them every year. I still get people saying, can I have an extension? Dog ate my homework, this kind of stuff. Oh, I'd forgotten the awards were happening. The awards happen everywhere, every year. Get ready for them. I always recommend that stations and presenters, you collect your best bits all the time. I mean, as somebody involved in community radio, I'd say if you've got the resources, whether it's volunteer resources or whatever, encourage your presenters to clip the best bits and put them up as audiograms, put them up on social media, do a best bits podcast for that show. But more importantly, keep those best bits of the shows and what the station output. For nothing else, for the awards. Use the awards as the catalyst to make that work. And then you find other ways of using that content as well. And then please do spread the word and encourage entries. You know, we want more and more stations to get involved in the Community Radio Awards. You know, I'd love to have a situation where we're having, well, I say thousands, but the judging management on that would be bonkers. But, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of entries. You know, there are over 300 community radio stations. We get 20, 30% of the sector enter. I'd love that to be more. I'd love that to be 100%. I'd love at least one entry from every community radio station in the country. It would be amazing. Our timeline. So we're officially launching this year's awards now. In April, our new website will go live with more detailed category information. Like I said, we're reviewing all that category information, and it will go live in April. May to June is the submission period. July to August will be the judging period. End of August, beginning of September is when we're aiming to get the nominations announcements out. And this year we're looking at doing more. In the past, we've just sent a press release out. I think we're looking at doing more. Again, inspired by the likes of the Student Radio Awards and the ARIAs. They do a bit of a live stream and nominations parties. I really would encourage stations in the regions to maybe get together and host a nominations party. It'd be great. We're looking at maybe streaming the nominations as well. So make it a date in the diary kind of thing. And we'll give you warnings of when this is going to happen as well. And then in October is when we'll aim to have the awards ceremony. For the awards ceremony, we want you. For years, we go around the country going to different locations, different universities, community venues. We want you. On Monday, we'll be launching our tendering process. In partnership with the UK Community Radio Network, we want to work with stations across the country for you to tender and put in a bid to host the awards and the conference. We will work with you, the awards will work with you, the UK Community Radio Network will work with you to help deliver the awards and the conference. And we want to see it go across the country, top to bottom, left to right. We tend to favour, I wouldn't say favour, just logistically we tend to do quite a lot in sort of the Midlands area. I'd love to do something down south. I'd love to do something up north, although we don't know how far up north we can go without upsetting all the southerners. But hopefully we can go up north one year, go down south one year, spend a few more years going in the middle. I'd love to do something in London, particularly for our 10th or our 10-year anniversary. It's an interesting conversation we're having now as management is, do we celebrate the 10th awards or do we celebrate 10 years of the Community Radio Awards? Because we're actually two separate years. Or do we do both? Why not double tap on that as well? But we want to hear from stations that are interested in working with us to accommodate the awards and the conference. Thank you so much. There's our website, communityradioowards.org.uk. You can find us on all the socials, other than TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, and I think on Instagram. I think it got unbanned. Is Instagram still banned or something? Oh. We created an Instagram account the night of the awards a couple of years ago, and because we did so much activity on it, they thought we were a spam account, so they shut it down. So we need to get the Instagram going again. And if you've got any questions, then do email us as well. But any questions at the moment? No. Are you all looking at the food table thinking, sorry?
Do you know where the awards are going to be?
No. I've got a leaning that I'd like to go up north, because we've not been up north. But what we've learned from the last couple of years is between me and my awards team and between the UK Community Radio Network team, we can't do it ourselves. We need local contacts, we need local resources, we need local deals. You know, we need stations to help us get there. Stations to go, I've got a great venue in mind that will do us a really good deal, or I've got relationships. You know, we've worked with universities in the past through academics who have gone, great, I want to bring the awards to my university. Can we do a good deal on what that looks like? You know, because we also try and get good deals. We want cheap, let's be honest. The cheaper we can get the venue, the cheaper we can get the food, the cheaper we can make the awards tickets. You know, we're all doing this as volunteers, and we want to make sure it's as accessible as possible. So transport links are also important as well.
What sort of capacity?
For the awards, we aim for 200 to 250, depending on where it is. I think we've got all the way up to, I think, 250, 260 when we were at Coventry, when we were at Wales, when we were in Barry, I think we got to about 250 or so, I think. And then in Cov, I'm sure we were 250, 260 in Cov. Bedford, the last one, I think we were about 230, 240, but we were very late. It was very late in the year. It clashed with, because it was November, so it clashed with some Christmas light switch-ons and stuff in November. And it was also very short notice. I think we put the whole thing together in about 6 weeks, 2 months kind of stuff. Whereas we want to do it. Nathan, who's part of the UK Community Radio Network, but he's also partner of the Community Radio Awards as well, has said that he wants us to announce where we're doing it when it comes to the nominations party, if not by the close of entry. So June, July time, we'd love to announce where it is, but it's a big body of work, because we want, with the conference, we need a conference for about 100, 150 people for the conference, and then the awards ceremony is about 250. And we need somewhere that can possibly do food, although in the feedback this year we asked people whether they had to have food or not, so we might even have a non-dining and dining option. Because again, interestingly, feedback from the sector, the Student Radio Awards used to do dining and then have a non-dining option, and I think they've got rid of that altogether, and it's just the awards, there's no dining option. I think the ARIAs used to be, when it was the Sonys, used to be a sit-down meal. Now I think the ARIAs isn't, it's just a big party. So we're looking at evolving what the awards look like. Do people still want a big formal sit-down? But yeah, so about 200, 250. But also, if you've seen the awards, and all the past awards are on our YouTube, we've upped the production value every year, and there's now almost a certain expected amount of production. Like there's also an expectation that you get some sort of gobby presenter on stage. And actually, it's worth saying, that's why I'm mocking Stephen because he's in the room. We try and actually encourage the best female and the best male to host the next year's awards. So we've not fully confirmed contracts yet, but it's something that we like to do because we like to give a platform for these winners as well. And you don't want to see more than 3 minutes of me at the awards. I don't think I could host something like that. Any other questions? No. Thank you ever so much, and watch this space for full details of the awards. And I'm certainly looking forward to it. Thank you.